That's what I like.
Hello there, everyone. A little unscheduled pit stop from Paul and myself to sort of bring you up to date with feedback of what you've been liking about what we've been doing, and we've been liking very, very much. And it's gone down very well, Paul.
It has. I mean, we put something on social media and asking for things that you like, and especially stuff that you've had and kept for years. Because my favourite still, and we did this on another episode, was the fact I still have this medallion that I got free with Lookin'. With Kung Fu. It was when David Carradine was on the front cover. I was like 7 or 8 years old on the front cover of Lookin', and you get this little dragon medallion, and I've still got it, and it's not something that I've meant to keep because I lose everything, but I still have it.
People that if it's not of your era, Lookin' was like a junior version of the TV Times. It represented ITV programs, and there it was. It dealt with the sort of junior programs that would appeal to you as an ITV viewer.
They had comic strips, didn't they, of different shows? So you would have a popular show that was on TV and they would make that into a comic strip. And then they would have pictures of the pop stars of the day, of the 70s. And that was, did you have any, were there things that you either had delivered comics that you always got every week, or, and then because over the years?
Every single week. And Paramount, on top of what you were talking about there, about TV programs, there was a comic, beautiful comic, color version, like a broadsheet sort of type publication, and it was called, I think it was called Century 21.
Right.
And in that there would have been Thunderbirds, there would have been Star Trek.
Wow.
There would have been all the really trendy programs that were happening, and beautiful. I mean, I wish I had copies of them now when I think about it. But you talk about education for kids, and they're reading comics, their heads will become pickled or whatever it happened to be. But reading comics and sharing comics, beautiful thing, and I think it really would have helped with people's appreciation of what was there.
Yeah, I went to the first one I had. I remember as a small kid. Was I remember hardly anything. It was called Disneyland, and it was obvious, and it was Disneyland comic. And I remember this is the weird thing, Eamon. I don't know whether you feel this, but there's certain times where things pop into my head from when I was a child, or when I was young, or whatever. And I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's almost a split second that I feel that I'm there for a second. I get the same feeling by thinking of it. Do you know what I mean? And it's so quick.
And for me, that period, always when you analyze it, is probably when I was about 10 years of age.
Yeah.
And I suppose for me, life became much more serious after being 10, because the troubles in Northern Ireland would have started. That would have been really bad to live through, very, very difficult. And exams took over your life, because from 11, it's the 11 plus you had to do. So up until 10, it was carefree, and such brilliant programs, such brilliant TV programs, which kids will never experience again, because there either are no kids programs nowadays, or they're all spread out over 1,000 different channels and no one watches the same things.
Yeah. I mean, I loved Blue Peter. I really did love Blue Peter.
I love Cat Weasel.
You love Cat Weasel as well?
Yeah.
Rick Baildon. I used to find him scary, though. I was a bit scared of. It was Sunday afternoon, wasn't it, Cat Weasel? And it did give me, I was like, oh no, I think it gave me nightmares. It really didn't do it for me. Although I did have a Cat Weasel annual, but it's still, it wasn't a good thing for me to own. It wasn't.
Uh-huh. I preferred Cat Weasel to Wurzel Gummidge.
Yeah.
Because Cat Weasel was
like it, though, hadn't you?
More clever.
But John Pertwee was Doctor Who as well, wasn't he? Because he did Aunt Sally, and they did all that. That was a bit for cake and all. I'm sorry, but there's something that didn't really do it for me. But yeah, when John Pertwee was Doctor, I think I've realised I was scared of a lot of things as a child, because I used to be scared of not Doctor Who the show, but I used to be scared of the music. You know, from the that scare the life out of me. And I used to run out of the room. It was the music that scared me, not the actual show. Was I a scared, frightened little child? I think I must have been.
No, I didn't take them like that. I loved American programs in those days. And I mean, things like the Banana Splits. La, 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 la. And that had a number. What were the cartoons within the Banana Splits? Journey to the Center of the Earth. Three Musketeers.
Three Musketeers. All for one and one for all.
Yeah.
And they used to pull the donkey of the... there was a donkey. Oh, no, that was the Arabian Nights. And they used to pull the donkey's tail, who would then go into like this whirling dervish thing and would attack everybody. But there's a guy, this is someone we should try and get on. There's the people that created the Banana Splits and also H.R. Puffin stuff, which Jack Wilde was in.
Yeah.
They were fellas called Sid and Marty Croft. And I think Sid is still alive at the age of 95.
Gosh.
Wouldn't he be great to get on this show?
Absolutely priceless.
He would be amazing. And he was a puppeteer in America in the 40s, 50s, and then created these things. And for those that haven't seen the Banana Splits or H.R. Puffin stuff, think of what it was like maybe in Hollywood in the late 1960s. And it was some crazy drug-fueled world. Yeah. And it is just so out there. How anybody could invent the whole thing is just beyond me, really.
But it's how and why we remember it. And we remember it because it was on at the same time every week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you used to have programs. I remember the space one, Space Family Robinson.
Yeah, the Swiss.
And it was join us next week, same time, same channel, and then remember Cracker Jack. It's Friday. It's 5:00. It's Cracker Jack.
And that's the weirdest thing is that if anybody said the word Cracker Jack, you had to reply with Cracker Jack. So it'd be like, welcome to Cracker Jack. Cracker Jack. So stupid. Who was the host? Because I remember
Eamonn Andrews,
Ed Stewart and Michael Aspel before then.
Yeah, Eamonn Andrews, who I'm named after.
You were named after Eamonn Andrews?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, my mother was, she just had me in hospital and thinking a name and all that sort of thing. And she was watching Eamonn Andrews. No, he was on the front of a magazine. That was what it was. He was on the front of a magazine. And she said she looked at him and his mop of black curly hair. And she looked down at me and she said, that's my little Eamonn. That was it.
Well, I never.
Yeah.
Because was he a boxer originally, I think? And then he went to sport, and then This Is Your Life is obviously what he was really known for.
I mean, the great thing for somebody like me, he was a generalist in terms of being a presenter, and so many of the best people were the people who could actually do it, worked across a number of programs. Now you just, you get all sorts of people doing all sorts of things, but he did current affairs, he did news, he did sport, he did light entertainment, he did This Is Your Life. Remember, he did What's My Line? There were so many programs that he would have done.
Eamonn Holmes, This Is Your Life.
We're coming here to talk to Paul Coit, but no, indeed, Eamonn Holmes.
You thought you were coming here to have a drink of it. No, this is no. And do you know the person that turned it down? The famous footballer that turned it down. You know this story?
Yes, I do. Danny Blanchflower, wasn't it?
Danny Blanchflower. Yeah. And he said, Danny Blanchflower, this is after winning the double in 61, This Is Your Life. And he said, no, it isn't. And off he went. and I've spoken since to Cliff Jones, who was in the double team. And I said, well, what happened? He said, we were all in the studio. Everybody was there. They had players that played with him. There were people that had flown over from Australia, and Danny was having none of it. So there was no way he was going to do This Is Your Life. So they just came back to the studio and said, Danny's not going to do it. So you'll just all have to go home. And that was the end of it.
I was on This Is Your Life, not as a subject, but as the bait. And basically George Best was the subject. Yeah. And so I'd met up with George and was bringing George to studio to do a special one-on-one interview with him. And then it was, I'm pretty sure it was Michael Aspel who was hosting it then. just come in and said, George Best, you thought you were here to do this, but tonight, this is your life. And it was a lovely thing to be part of. Really, really nice to be part of, and to be there for George and to witness that close up. And the great thrill for me was, I mean, this man would have been my ultimate hero, to meet your hero, man of such talent, such genius, and to be there so close to him. And then from that, as a result, eventually, I suppose we became friends, and his family actually gave me the accolade of hosting his funeral, as it turned out. Yeah.
Did you always, is there a point when him being a hero and then becoming friends and getting to know him? Because I've had that with people that I've known and idolized. And was it always there though? You still had that childhood thing, or does it go? Did it never really go?
You kept your distance. You knew what the difference was. I always had that respect for him, and never could have. I mean, you really have to appreciate who you're dealing with and who they are. I mean, this is one of the best footballers that has ever graced the game,
Yeah.
and I never lost sight of that. No,
we've had some loads of people have been in contact with us, which is just fabulous. And these are things that people have still got after all these years that have managed to hold on to. I've got another one.
Yeah.
What are the names there? We've got Jen.
Well, here's Jen. What's Jen? So she's got a lot of Boys Own memorabilia.
90s Boys Own memorabilia. You still kept it. I don't know whether you keep it as a keepsake or think it's going to be worth money in the future, or just every now and again you go through it to remind you of a different time.
Yes, a different time, different place. Alan Beezer books. So the comic Beezer. And I presume when he says Beezer books, I presume that means annuals.
Yeah, I would have thought so.
Kids still get annuals today at Christmas.
I used to get the Blue. I've got a collection still of Blue Peter annuals, and I've still got the old. But I think they just stopped doing. Do they still do annuals?
Not sure about that. Amanda.
Look, shoot.
Oh, yeah, shoot
annual.
Shoot annual. Yeah, amazing.
There's the Smash Hits yearbook from 1985.
Gosh.
And how about that one? Do you remember that? The Goodies even had an annual.
Goodies, goody, yum, yum.
And whether that stood the test of time, but that was just like really out there, wasn't it? Back in the goodness.
Whether this will stand the test of time. Amanda, thank you, Amanda. Good hearing from you. I have a huge collection of Spurs scarves. Now, I'm nothing against scarves, my friend, except I can't stand these split scarves, these joint scarves.
Oh,
Spurs v Charlton or whatever the heck on it. Who cares?
Half and half scarves, honestly.
Don't like them.
We had a Spurs played Wolves, and being two Korean players, they knew that all the South Koreans would be coming over, and they sold, I think it was 1,500 half and half scarves in the space of about 10 minutes. But this is my first. I found this. This is actually the first Spurs. It's the old style, and it's. I had that for my first ever game, 14th of February, 1976.
I'm sure
Spurs 0, Queen's Park Rangers 3.
Gosh. Enid Blyton books from Joe. Joe also has cassette recorder and a lot of old tapes to go with it, and an old Teddy.
Have you got cassettes? Have you still got cassettes? Have you got anything that?
No.
About old videos that you're in and things like that?
Yeah, I got VHSs that are out in the garden shed and going mouldy and things. They'll never be. Known. Yeah, but it's lovely. It's lovely hearing from people, and that's what they do. I think it categorizes and memorizes our past, and times that were important to us and happy for us and whatever. And when I look back at things, and you think, what happened to that? What happened to that? And your parents were always keen to throw things out, and that was it. So. None of us would know just how affectionate we would be towards these items as we got older.
My old shirt, I remember the moment, and this is one we want to talk about, I think, in the future, is football shirts. And do you remember when things changed and then Admiral brought out football
Yeah.
kits. Back in the day, were very plain, and then all of a sudden, these stripes appeared, and these Avril. Anyway, I was in, and it's almost like, it sounds ridiculous, but it's almost like a religious experience. I remember going into Romford, which was from Haroldwood near there, and go in there and walk past this sports shop, and it was the summer of 78, and I looked over, and in the window, it's just like the Manchester United one you've got. It was one of those, what do you call those, mannequins?
Yeah.
And it was this Spurs shirt, which I'd never seen before. And it had the Admiral logo, and it had the Spurs, and it had these stripes down the side of these shorts, these silky blue shorts with Admiral thing. And I remember looking at it, just thinking, oh my God. And I can remember looking at it, and I'm just staring at this thing, thinking, I've one day, and I eventually got one, and I've still got the shirt. And I had my son wear it at a Spurs do, and it was a family Spurs thing. And I had him wear the shirt, brought it back, and everything's in perfect condition. And my wife, bless her, there was a little stain on there. Put it in the water. and the Spurs badge is all but faded away. But I still have it. And it was just, it sounds ridiculous, but just to see it, it meant so much to me, this shirt.
The team I associated most with Admiral, I have no idea why, but the one team who really showbizzed the old First Division with little epaulets on their socks and all sorts of things.
I know where you go.
Leeds United.
Yeah. They were
Don Revy's Leeds United.
Because they were the first.
Yeah. I mean, but Revy believed, he transformed the Leeds kit into making it plain white. Because it was it Real Madrid or whatever, it was he wanted to emulate whoever wore this white kit. I think it was Real. And before that, the Leeds kit, I think, was blue and yellow. Before that, and he turned it into all white.
There was when you mentioned the sock things, there were those. They had these that you mentioned.
Ions.
Yeah, and they were on the side of the socks, and it would have the number on there. And they were invented by a man called Paul Trevelyan. Now, Paul Trevelyan's still alive. I think he's just turned 90, and he was a great artist. So lots of great cartoons and.
I remember, and
it was his invention.
He drew for Shoot magazine and all sorts of things like that. And I didn't know that. I didn't know that at all. The little tie-ons round the socks. That's incredible. Because
there was a guy because Admiral were local, and they were from the north, and they were trying to sell their shirts, and they went to Don Revy and said, well, we've got this, and we've got these stripes down the side. Would you be interested? I don't know whether there was a little backhander involved there. I mean, the husband loved it. You're not telling me they went there and he went, yeah, that's great. I'll have that for the shirt. I don't know how it went, but then it exploded. It got so big, they ended up going bust because they couldn't keep providing. I think it was in Sheffield. It just couldn't keep it going.
Amazing.
Yeah, and United had that. I still remember your teams around 77 had those Admiral tracksuits. They were just really gaudy, but I remember everybody having one.
Yeah. Goodness. Yeah, so what do I remember? I remember the footballs, regulation size 5 Bobby Moore orange football.
Yeah.
So that was good. I mean, I always remember saving your pocket money till you got a football, and then somebody in the street pulled it off you and kicked it over a wall or whatever it would be. You never had it. So I remember those footballs as well. But I also loved toy soldiers. I had Action Men. I had something like 15 Action Men.
I loved Action.
Saved up over the years. And Cowboys and Indians, quite a lot of those. Timpo toys, they were called. Really good quality little figurines that had detachable guns, rifles, cowboy hats, feathers, all sorts of things.
But none of this would be allowed now. I mean, that's not politically correct, is it, to have cowboys and call them cowboys and Indians? And also to say how different things were. And you used to be able to get Action Man, and you could buy, I mean, as ridiculous as this sounds today, SS uniforms and things like that. You would have Nazi.
Yeah.
It was crazy. And you think, if anybody, can you imagine walking into a shop, an Action Man and a Nazi sentry uniform and other? These were just the norm, because back in the day, do you remember, war was very big in the 70s. Colditz. You used to get Escape from Colditz games.
Yeah.
Colditz was big on TV. The Action Men were all very World War II. And that was sort of 25 years afterwards.
Airfix soldiers as well.
Yeah.
Little small soldiers and tanks and guns and all sorts of things. But bear in mind, that was only 30 years after the end of World War II.
That's right. 75. Yeah. Exactly right. And but you know, those days, and that's what people had. But I had all the big box of the Action Man stuff. I mean, I saw I don't know whether you'd grown out of them before Gripping Hands came in. They were the rubber gripping hands, and I chewed the fingers off, unfortunately, because they were quite tasty in my mouth. So I ended up having they couldn't really grip anything. Then they had the one with the beard. You could have the blonde one, the dark one, the one with the beard, one without the beard, but they always have the scar across the face.
And what about the one with the moving eyes?
Yes, eagle eyes.
The eyes would move as well. But the outfit, the uniform that I had, that I really loved the astronaut. So in 1969, the Apollo moon landings and whatever, then they did the silver suited, nobody went to space in a silver suit, I don't think, but the Action Man had the silver suit. And I remember the Frogman outfit in black or orange.
They were really difficult to pull on the legs though, weren't they? Because they were so tight.
Yeah.
I also had this, you've reminded me of something. I had it was a NASA space helmet. Now, I remember it coming. I remember getting it for Christmas in this big box. I mean, would you wear it around Romford? No, not really. And it was the whole space helmet with the visor, everything. God, I'd love to have that now.
Yeah, I'd love to have had a Captain Scarlet outfit, but then I realized I was, 28 at the time, and it was never going to fit.
Did you have, seriously, I didn't know you could buy them. Did you have the Captain Scarlet outfit?
Yeah, probably up to about 8 years of age maximum, probably. But you could get Captain Scarlet, Captain Blue, I think Colonel White. There were a few of them available.
Wow. I never had, because you couldn't get the Thunderbirds with the sash, though, could you? I never saw those anywhere.
Well, recently, I was offered a number of things like hats and things. I went to events, and they do make them nowadays for adults. They do. The one I would have really loved was the Star Trek outfit, a Captain Kirk shirt and things. But the sort of moobs sort of put me off that. It wasn't really good. It was too tight on me.
Shatner, though, he did have some moobs going on, though, didn't he? There was still a bit of moob action going on in William Shatner in that thing.
The thing about Shatner is, of course, he acted Kirk in a sort of Shakespearean way.
Yes, yeah.
So he accentuated his words,
Would stop.
To move, to die, everything was, he took what was basically an ordinary script that could have been read in a different way, and he acted it out in this sort of Shakespearean theatrical stage way.
Have you ever heard the Sabotage? Him doing the Sabotage thing. He does a voiceover, and it's hopefully, we can play it for you in a second. But the he did this voiceover, and he's going, "Okay, sabotage," and then you can hear someone in his ear going, hi, it's sabotage," and he said, "Don't tell me how to say sabotage. It makes me sick." And he's so angry that someone would dare direct him when he's playing Kirk. And then he had the Transformed Man album where he does his version. Have you heard Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds?
Yes, yeah.
Narrates as Spock. But very. You must have met. Did you meet him, ever interview him?
Yes, yeah.
How was he?
He said, "Hi, look at you and me. Two big fat Irish faces."
Oh, that's nice.
You have a big fat Irish face, and so have I. And I like to think when I look at things, I think, I'm really delighted I met him. He signed a picture for me. I mean, a picture of him, really, really very, very nice. I mean, I do believe that he is one of the great icons of the 20th century. I just think just incredible who he was and what he stood for.
Did you call him Bill?
Oh, no. I call him Captain.
Yeah. Back in the day, I remember kids that had the Spock shirt. I remember they were for sale, and I desperately wanted one and never found them. And I can still remember speaking to someone going, where do you get that shirt? I want one of those shirts. These other kids, these shirts, I never actually had got one.
Yeah.
Never managed to get one. But, it's the funny thing is these days, and I don't know whether you've done that, Eamonn, that years afterwards, when you could maybe afford them or there's something, just to own something and just to have, and just to, I wanted it then. And I'm not going to have any use for it now, but just because I can get it.
One of the great things, the amazing things, is that the things we are talking about were harder to get. I mean, my family didn't have the money to go and buy these things. You saved up for it. You just couldn't click online and get something delivered to you that day or whatever. So I think it meant a lot more. And we hadn't got virtual reality. We hadn't got, we couldn't use iPads and call up pictures and things, but you could imagine what things were like, and you eventually got bits and pieces relating to it. So I wouldn't swap my childhood for the world, really, the childhood of my age or growing up in the 70s. I hear when, people who've never lived in the 70s talk about how awful the 70s were. I think I had a wonderful time in the 70s, like truly wonderful time. Yeah.
It was my entire childhood. So from the age of 3 to 13 was right away in the 70s. And I remember very fondly. I know people
have been, what was I? I was 10, about 8 years of age upwards. And it's just a brilliant, brilliant time. Brilliant time.
Well, look, we need more. So send us in things that you loved, things that you like.
People who we should talk to on your behalf. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, and we mentioned Sid Marty Croft, and goodness knows there's so many people that are still around that can talk about those days. And it's all about, and like I said, it's invoking those memories and it's the feeling I get. Even when I mentioned, and you mentioned the spacesuit, and I talked about that helmet, I found myself back in my old house looking, and for that moment, I know it sounds weird, there's like this strange adrenaline, there's this strange excitement that's there for a second, and it comes back, and then it goes. But if I could bottle that and have that every now and again, maybe to last for 5 or 10 minutes, I'll take it every time.
Every time, every single time. Well, thank you, my friend. Let's do it again some other time and enjoy every minute of it.
Let's do that. We've got some great guests coming up. We're going to talk about the Thunderbirds with someone that was completely involved in that. We've got Ray Winston coming up soon as well. Yeah. There's so many great guests.
Especially ours. Yeah, heart to heart. That's a whole other story. Until the next time, folks, thanks very much indeed for tuning in. Thanks for keeping in touch. And I hope you like it all. See ya.
That's what I love.